You're kind of trailblazers in this space, being the first Black-owned company to receive national distribution.
What I'll say is taking the phrase trailblazing. That's trailblazing in itself, right? Having a tangible impact model to support under-resourced kids in America.
Welcome to Securing the Bag, the Roots exclusive series that's all about work, entrepreneurship, and the secrets to success. Today, our guest is Pernell Cezar, CEO and co-founder of BLK Bold Specialty Coffee and Tea. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
I love coffee. Lots of people love coffee, but making it is a whole different thing. How did you get the idea to make coffee in the first place?
The struggles that we related to the most, which is growing up in Gary as kids and not having the level of resources that we saw that the greater world had as we became adults, and wanted to use products that help fuel us as adults and as professionals to be able to pay it forward back to the future of our society, which ultimately is the success of our youth, and for us under-resourced youth in particular. So there's this love for the product, but then there's this love for community and wanting to bridge the two and allow other people that enjoy a great cup of coffee and tea to also be a part of that experience. What does it take to open a coffee shop? Okay, what does it take to make these great products that we enjoy? All right, so if there's someone roasting, what does it take to roast? And then you just dive deeper and deeper to understand like these little nuances. And I'd say because, again, being a product junkie and a consumer junkie and loving coffee it allowed us to stay curious with all the information intake that was required to even say, all right, yeah, let me put my money where my mouth is and actually move this thing forward. So the internet is, it can definitely be the ghetto, but it also can be one of the most resourceful things in the world,
Sure.
right? And especially when you're, trying to identify, your next move and build confidence in being able to do that. So we were keyboard ninjas and midnight researchers just trying to figure out, what is to this vast industry of, something we took for granted just because we just enjoyed the coffee experience.
Okay. So were you guys like kitchen chemists? Did you have a focus group? Like, how did you know when your stuff was ready for market?
Wow, trial and error. We started in my garage with just like all the basic necessities to roast coffee. And from there, it's a matter of like, all right, the first lab rat was myself. And fortunately being confident and, having gone from the spectrum of a grande triple pump extra blah blah blah, right, to just black coffee, to understand appreciating nuances of that. I knew I can discern a good cup of coffee. It was a matter, can I find out which one deserves to continue to move forward? And so tons of hours, late night hours in the garage, just trial and error from there. And then of course the friends and fam. Fortunately, I have very transparent family, so they're gonna be real honest out of the gates. And then going into the community.
So there are a lot of coffee brands in the marketplace, but you're the first Black-owned brand to receive national distribution. Did you lean into that, being a Black-owned company, or what did you use to differentiate yourself in this crowded marketplace?
Sure. Yes, it is very crowded. Fortunately, we were aware of that as we moved into the space and launched into the space. And so our ethos is specialty coffee meets community impact.
Okay.
And the heartbeat of what we do is supporting under-resourced youth across America. We give 5% of our gross profits to youth initiatives, initiatives that support youth in a diversity of needs. And what I'll say is taking the phrase trailblazing. That's trailblazing in itself, right? Having a tangible impact model to support under-resourced kids in America. Pick a different category. That's trailblazing, right? And then you look at, again, coffee, and when you go to shop, at shelf, or even what's carried, at your corporate office or on your university, right? It's all driven by way of low price point coffee or national brand power, AKA, the Starbucks of the world, right? Versus what the premium experience could and should be, just like what wine is, right? And so for us, having the background to be able to scale brands and businesses, when we look at an aisle that we love as consumers and we spend money in as consumers, it's like, why can't we have the quality representation at shelf as well? And there's a lot of nuances when it comes to like educating around the premium side of coffee. I'd say like coffee doesn't have to be like that nuanced in educating people, but it does need to be guardianed by those that are bringing it to market. And we guardian that, right? And so by way of that, and also happening to be Black owned, right? There's a level of pride and representation in doing that, but there's also a lens that this aisle and this industry hasn't really been looked at through.
So you've got a pretty cool partnership with the NBA. Can you talk a little bit about how that came to be?
Yeah, that one is still mind blowing for me because I grew up as a basketball player, self-proclaimed, and a huge fan of the NBA. And so Rod and I both. And so for us, as we continue to build the DNA of our brand, being a certified B Corp, being Black owned, being sustainably sourced, and the NBA and how they partner with their licensees with diversifying their portfolio. We were fortunate to, and we get many calls from people. We were fortunate to get a call from the NBA,
wow,
and saying that they were looking at their food and beverage portfolio and wanted to see if there's a possible match for us, if there's some mutual interest there. And so we began that journey. I'll say Rod began that journey for us.
Okay.
He brought me in after we were pretty much ready to go because I think he knew I wasn't ready to take that level of fandom. And that's a balance in being an entrepreneur. It's like, starting out for me with engaging with certain brands, it was like, wow, I've been a fan or a consumer of these brands for forever. Okay, now it's time to turn the business hat on. And so that was one in itself. But with that, it was create a multi-year partnership for us to leverage the marks of the NBA's teams to connect our brand to those fan bases, and doubling down from an impact and I would say a modern day relevancy, and the leading sport in my POV on modern day relevancy. The NBA also matches our 5% that we give back to these different youth organizations. And so, it's a way for us to continue to align our values, but also make sure that they're represented to consumers and the people we represent.
That's really great. And a great way to get the NBA involved in your cause, which is cool.
Yeah. Cheers.
So a lot of people have business ideas, but not everybody can get them off the ground. So could you share like maybe your top 3 pieces of advice for someone who has a business idea, how you think they can move it forward?
Yeah. Know your why is one I always say. I've come across a ton of ideas, but it wasn't until early 30s and having the conviction of why and feeling like very whole from that, that gave me the confidence to want to move it forward. And again, I share the ethos of Black and Bold, and that correlates very closely to Rod and my why, and that gives us the boost and the energy that we need on the tough days that are 365 days of the year with building something. And I think it's really important that if you don't know what your why is, to make sure you take inventory on, are you pathing yourself to discover that? And it does come from digging within and maybe going deeper down your own journey to understand what resonated with you the most. Another is understand what your niche is that you're providing to what you're building, because you can't just build something that other people are standing up for you. The majority of what you're building is going to be fully reliant on your skill set until you get it, to a place that it can be, it can have the right foundation to be resourced by way of others, and pour into that skill set along that journey, because you're ultimately going to continue to default to it when the growth chart to volatility. The chart of growth is volatile, right? Sure. And so you'll tap into that well a lot more than you think. And then lastly, give yourself grace. Whether you don't move an idea forward, you still got to give yourself grace. But if you move an idea forward, you better be the nicest person that you need to be is to yourself, because there's a lot of relearning, recalibrating that comes with being in entrepreneurship, let alone the struggles of one initiative versus the journey of another. So.